Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome along. It is P.M.P here on the Bhoycie Bus. I don't usually step in on it, but here I am. Russell's not available today. But yeah, we've got a good Celtic victory to talk about in the end, because for a little bit there, it was looking a bit touch and go, a bit similar to some recent performances, but in the end, we managed to pull it through. And oh boy, do we love to leave it late, especially in games against Motherwell. That tradition continues this season. But yeah, Celtic got the points, and myself and Terry are here to go over it. Terry, I imagine you're relatively happy with how that game finished in the end, because, as I say, bit of a frantic one.
Well, Phil, the difference for me is I've only just caught up because what sometimes happens whenever my young fellas are playing, I avoid everything to do with the match and I catch up later on. So today was one of those days where my middle lad was playing at the same time as the Celtic game. So I was in Belfast for his match and I just cut off all contact with the rest of the world, phone off. But as as things would have it, I seen it. The coach in the other team, I seen him check his phone at exactly a quarter to one. I seen him check his phone and I saw him kick the ground. And without knowing anything about the guy, in my head I just thought, he's a Celtic fan. He's just checked his phone and Motherwell have scored. So obviously, me then coming home to watch the game delayed and seeing that Motherwell took the lead on the exact time that I seen him kick the ground. Yep. you just work these things out. So I had an affinity with a guy that I'd never met before. I just knew what had happened. And first half was absolutely dreadful. It was just the same monotonous crap pish that we've become accustomed to this season. Our title was slipping away. We had 45 minutes to sort it out. We got back into it early in the second half, and I suppose the only difference from my perspective, the only thing that was different was as the game was teetering on the brink and going towards those last few minutes, the only difference today was I felt something was coming. Yeah, we haven't felt that. Myself and Russell have been talking where you just knew we weren't getting anything. Today it felt a wee bit different in that second half. That second half was what we expect to see from this Celtic team. And it did feel as if something was coming. The chances that we were creating were good. But it was just a case of, see if we didn't get the 3 points, Phil, that was the title gone. The title was gone. Agreed. As far as I was concerned. And I'm just absolutely delighted that I'm sitting here after a week. After a week where myself and Russell were trending all over Rangers Twitter with clips from our post-match pish last week, I'm just sitting here and I'm absolutely delighted that Hoopy the Huddle Hound made a match-winning contribution today with 2 goals. So get in there, Idah.
Yes, he did indeed. Before we get into the crux of the game, of course, remember, folks, to do all that good stuff that helps out algorithm CSC, hit the like button, share, as Russell says, slag the hair. Obviously, get involved in our comment section. Plenty of you already have. Share the link to the Bhoycie Bus far and wide. Subscribe. We're heading towards 5,000 as the next landmark. So help us along the way. And I say, a thumbs up or even a thumbs down, depending on what team you support. I suppose there might be a few of them today. Then obviously that helps us as well, because YouTube loves an active channel. But yeah, let's get into it then. So Terry, you did touch on the first half. There isn't much to go say about the first half, but one thing that was alarming about it was we were playing a criminally high defence line. It was so easy for Motherwell to keep getting in behind us. And of course, they did score 2 minutes into the game. VAR did call it off, but that goal was a running theme. There was many instances during that first half where our defence were just so far up and they were just pinging in balls in behind, running into space, and we just looked flat-footed. Scales, Nawrocki couldn't catch up with him. Taylor, he's pushed forward a little bit. He's out of position. And I say that goal, even though it did get chopped off, it just was so easy for them. And obviously at the time, you don't know if it's going to get chopped off, but I was like, that's just typical. 2 minutes into the game, and it was that simple for the guy to just go down that wing, cut inside, and just put it in the bottom corner, no problem at all. And at that point, I'm thinking, oh god, it's going to be a horror show of a day. This is not what we need right now. But I say as the half went on, Terry, it seemed like we just kept getting caught out with that. In terms of chances that we had in the first half, I mean, Taylor had one that was nothing really. And Kyogo, obviously, there's one where he went down and it looks like he picked up a knock in it. But yeah, we just, again, it's a running theme, Terry, with some recent performances. We just looked absolutely futile in that first half.
I know we're limping from week to week, Phil, and you're thinking, right, like last week we were saying there's 13 cup finals to go. Let's do this. Then it's 12 cup finals to go, and you're just waiting for this. You're just waiting for this season to take off for this team, and I think there's no reason to think that anything's going to change from the way it's been from the start of this season, because we haven't done anything different. We've got the same manager, picking the same players, playing the same formation, playing the same team, and we've done nothing in January to try and change anything. And we just are sitting, waiting, expecting something to change, but nothing will change until you change something. And that first half was just synonymous with everything bad that we've seen this season, where it's slow play. Every time the other team go forward, you expect the ball to end up in the net. We got that warning on 2 minutes. Yeah, it was clear offside, obviously. But aside from that, we ended up with the ball in the net. They had another chance a couple of minutes later, which ended up with a Nawrowski concession of a corner. But also in that same move, he was turned inside out, the same as he was by Majowski for the Aberdeen goal, where he's all over the place. I'm not convinced by him yet. I felt we started to take control. Really, when Carter Vickers came on, that's he's a centre back, but he just gives you that calm assurance and it builds from the back. So to get into the game, you have to have control. To have control, you have to be assured that the other team aren't going to score. And we didn't really have that. I felt Motherwell were going to score every time they get into our half until he came on. His sheer presence, it's not that he does anything flash. It's not that, he's absolutely amazing on the ball. He doesn't spray 50, 60-yard passes like Alan Stubbs used to do. But Carter Vickers just gives you a calm assurance that when he's on there, you feel everything's a wee bit more under control. And when he came onto the park, I felt that was where we got a stranglehold on the game. We looked assured at the back. We then built from there, and we then started to create stuff going forward. And we started to create proper quality chances. I mean, with some of them, Idah missed when it was easier to score.
Yes.
We should have had a penalty. I have no idea why Willie Cullen wasn't called over to have a look at that one. The hands were above the waist. We then got a token gesture from the VAR official where he tried to bring Willie Cullen over when there was absolutely zero need to bring him over. That was never a red card. Willie Cullen, to be fair, stuck to his guns. And I think that's the third time in the history of Scottish football that a referee has stuck to his guns, and Willie Cullen's two of them. And
that was St Johnstone last season, wasn't it? St Johnstone.
Yeah, he was 100% right. But I think the reason he was called over on that one is because the VAR official realised that he should have called him over when the guy's hands are up here, a la Goldson. But listen, we're at this moment again. I was ready to concede the title when we were one down. I was ready to concede the title when we were one each. We've pulled it out of the fire. We've had a really, really good, strong second half performance. Agreed. But we've been at this juncture so many times this season where we're thinking, is this a turning point? Is this a turning point?
No.
The likelihood is our next game will be absolutely pish again, and we might not win. But let's hang on. Let's hang on to this second half performance. This is a different post match reaction than looked possible with 5 minutes to go, thanks to Hoopy the Huddle Hound. So
yes, big Hoopy.
We've breathed life into our season. We're still there. We've still got a chance. We cannot afford any more slip-ups. But if we can somehow replicate that second half for the rest of this season, then we'll win this league. But
of course,
the chances of that happening are slim based on what we've seen this season.
Yeah, without a doubt. But you're talking there about how making changes and whatnot. Second half, it was night and day, because at half time, Brendan Rodgers did realise that some changes need made, and obviously Idah came on, and it didn't take him that long to get involved and get us back into the game. And
Phil, was that purely tactical, or was Kyogo hurt?
bit of both, I think, because Kyogo, we know what he's like when he does go down with when he does get hurt in some sort of way. He does tend to get wrapped up in cotton wool. We did see it last season. There was the infamous 1 minute into the game against Rangers. He get done with a shoulder injury, and it turned out being a better thing when Kyogo went off because they were scared of Giakoumakis, essentially. He came on and gave them all sorts of problems. But yeah, I think today with the way Kyogo went down, he did go off briefly. I actually said he went up the tunnel, then magically he was right back and coming on the park. So I don't know what he went up the tunnel for. What was he going up to collect? I don't know. But I think it was a bit 50-50 really, because he wasn't in the game. Again, he just wasn't getting involved, whether that's Brendan's tactics, what he's telling him to do. But I mean, the boy's a good player. I feel like, I know you can only blame Brendan so much on it, and it's like, well, he's a good player. He should be able to adapt to these things, but he just looked again like a bit of a passenger today, sadly, which is really unfortunate because he's such a good player for us.
He'd one sniff, and he got his foot on when O'Reilly played him in. He got his foot onto it, but he didn't get enough purchase onto it.
Yeah,
but I was actually happy when I seen the team line up because I didn't think. We call it the two up top, but it wasn't the two up top that Brendan was doing previously. All he was doing was sacrificing a midfielder to play a striker in that midfield role. He wasn't actually playing two up top because Kyogo was playing really, really withdrawn with Idah up front. And to be honest, I didn't think that was the answer. I didn't think it was working. I don't think what we've done today is working either because we're playing with wingers, and out of the million wingers that we've got, none of them are on form. What I would actually, and I'm probably the last person that could ever be managing Celtic, but what's in my head is if the wingers aren't working, we do without the wingers, and I would like to actually see us move to something where we just completely overload the midfield. So we go Idah, we go O'Reilly, we go McGregor, we go Bernardo, some sort of diamond.
A diamond, yep.
And get rid of the wingers because none of them are on form. And we then get the width from the fullbacks. And actually, Johnson's been poor. I love him. I'm a really big fan of Johnson's, but I would actually go Ralston on the right, get the width from him. Taylor on the left, get the width from him. And we did actually get two of our goals from Johnston and Taylor today. They got the assist on two of the goals. I would forsake all of those wingers, get the width from Ralston or Johnston and Taylor on the other side, and then load the midfield with Idah, Bernardo, O'Reilly, McGregor. Try and get a real stranglehold in the middle of the park. Make us really, really difficult to score against, and then hope that we've got the quality to get the job done. The wingers aren't on form. Kuhn got a start today. I thought he was dreadful. Paolo was dropped because he was dreadful last week. I know he got a goal today. Yang was a shining light in the second half. I am a fan of Yang. I think he's really good at going at his man. My only concern about Yang is the final ball.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
he got an assist today, but his final ball suspect. He doesn't rack up big numbers in his previous team. I think he was like 2 goals and 2 assists for a season, which isn't what you want from one of your attacking players. The only thing about him is he goes at his man and he commits his man. If we can somehow get an improvement in terms of that final ball, he might end up being the answer. But none of the wingers are convincing. My thoughts would be, if they're not doing it, scrap them. Try and make us really, really hard to break down, really hard to score against, and hope we've got enough quality to get games done. But I don't know.
I think on Friday night I said that to Liam. I was talking about different shapes we could try, and again, it's one that crossed my mind. But with the way Brendan seems to be quite rigid and stubborn, it's like I see exactly what you're saying. The wingers are pretty much redundant most of the time in the games. They touch the ball, they pass it back the way to the fullback, who then passes it back to the centre back, and they don't really take men on. So it's like, well, what's the point in them right now?
What's the point of Kuhn, Phil? Like, what's the point? He turns inside and plays it back to the fullback. Yep. Like this, we're stuck with this guy for 5.5 years, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good one, Celtic. Nice one. But yeah, that's one of the many bizarre things that's been going on right now. But so your second half's a novel concept, though, Terry. You've got a 6'3" striker on. swing a high ball into the box and watch what happens instead of this tippy-tappy stuff and passing it to feet. We whip a ball into the box, a high ball. He gets up there, leaps like a salmon, heads it into the net, gets us back on. He did get just a perfect introduction to the game. So he's only just on the park, just a few minutes at that point, just what we needed early in the second half. But as I say, just exactly what we need wide players to be doing. Swing balls into the box. And that was the fullback that had to do that, not one of the wingers. Greg Taylor had to do it for us.
It was a pretty decent ball. I think you're doing him a disservice that he just swung a high ball in. It was a pretty decent ball. And Idah, despite him being reasonably tall and reasonably strong, he isn't renowned for his aerial prowess, but it was a decent ball, and it was a very, very good header. Very good header. And he had another one later on where I actually felt he could have done a bit better. I think it was from Taylor again. It was just ever so slightly behind him, but you were getting towards the 85 minutes or whatever, and he got another chance. And I was actually impressed with Idah whenever he came on. He's a big unit, and he's not unlike Giakoumakis in terms of stature and whatever else. And I don't know. He's looked useful in some instances, and he's looked very novice-y in other instances. And obviously I'd done him a disservice last week by running him down a little bit, and I said he wouldn't score 5 from open play. If we can deliver balls like we did today, and the assists came from the two fullbacks, came from Taylor and Johnson. Maybe this guy is a weapon that can get us over the line here. I don't know I don't know if him and Kyogo together will work. I know we played it, but it probably has to be one or the other. And I'm really not precious about which one it is. If Idah on the pitch makes it more likely that we're going to score, then let's go with that kind of thing.
Yeah, he gives you something different in terms of the strikers we've got right now, and like with Motherwell in particular, they're a team that, let's be honest, bit of hatchet men team. They've got all the big physical units at the back. So in a lot of these teams, I say a lot of these teams, pretty much all of them play the low block against us. There's going to be days where you're just going to have to just put balls into the box, high balls, just try and outmuscle them essentially, instead of, I say, tippy-tappy, passing it sideways, because they just, they stay rigid, they keep their shape, it's hard to break down. Today, I say we brought on Idah and swung that cross in, or a good ball in from Greg Taylor, and he gets up there, heads it perfectly into the net. But something that has been coming up a lot, I think, since January, this seems to be a running theme every week, Terry, you'll have noticed that a guy I think we need to give props to, because today could have been worse if it wasn't for Joe Hart, because AJSC Tech says Joe Hart's point blank save. I think this might be early in the second half because Motherwell were going
10
down.
minutes, 10 minutes into the second half.
Yeah, and it's like it was Miller, that boy Liam. I don't say Liam Miller. Somebody Miller wanted, but he got a point blank header, and it was a great save. It was a reaction save, and it's like that's a running theme right now. It feels like every game since January we're saying Joe Hart's kept us in that, and he's obviously a man of the moment right now with what was announced through the week. And it's like he's obviously forced the club's hand essentially by saying that I'm leaving. He's need to find a good goalkeeper now, and they really do, because despite the flaws that have crept into his game, you think if he wasn't in goal right now, geez, Terry, we could be even worse off right now.
I know that's only come out this week, Phil, but I feel the club will have known from during the summer that this was the last season, and Joe will have known from during the summer that this is the last season. I just think the rumour mill around making moves for goalkeeper in January probably tell me that this has already been known. It's just now coming out into the public domain. But I totally agree with what you're saying. If we look at every game from the game against Rangers at the very tail end of last year, you can probably pick a moment in each game where Hart has made a save that has stopped us conceding a goal.
Yep.
That said, there's probably been a match or a spell in each of those games where he's done something where he's almost cost us. And there was one today where he's a bit slow with the ball at his feet, and the Motherwell player closes him down. So, that's one to park. We know he's gone. We know we need a new goalkeeper. If we're sitting in August or September and we don't have a new goalkeeper in. There's absolutely nobody can say we didn't know anything about this. So let's see where that goes. That'll be an interesting one to see where we end up, because whenever Seagrass came in, a lot of supporters thought this was going to be genuine competition, but I think that ship has sailed. He'll be gone in the summer. He'll be gone as soon as we can find somewhere else for him to go. Bain's never going to be the number one. The young lad that we'd high hopes of, he's not going to be ready. So there'll be somebody coming in the door to keep goal for Celtic next season. That's one we really, really need to get right. I hope it's one of these ones where Peter Lawwell's made reference in the announcements to the stock exchange and everything and whatever, that we were trying but we couldn't get it over the line because I hope one of those people is a goalkeeper of some repute, and that whatever we need to invest, if we're getting somebody to come in who's going to be in the team for the next 5 years or something like that, then whatever it costs, that's what it costs. But Joe Hart, that save today, it was straight at him, but that ball was moving at pace, and it was a great reaction stop. And he genuinely has had at least one moment in every game since that last game in December where he's pulled one out for us.
Yes.
Who knows? I still think we're up against it here. I still think that second half was out of character from what we've seen in the last 6 weeks. However, you just hope beyond hope that whatever happened at halftime, and there was a reaction in the second half. You definitely could see it. So I don't know what the manager has said. I don't know, maybe the captain has said something. Maybe some of the other players have stood up and said something. But something happened at halftime that created that second half. And that second half was much, much more what we've become accustomed to and what you expect to see from a Celtic team.
Yeah, definitely. And also, thank you, Maestro. If I was Lennon Miller, I knew it was L Miller. I had Lee Miller in my head. I had what was it, Liam Miller in my head. I was like, it was definitely L something. Lennon Miller. Thank you. That was who it was, because he was involved in the
There's a lot of Celtic history in that name, Lennon Miller.
There is indeed. And he was involved, of course, in Motherwell's goal. To be fair to them, it actually was a really good finish from Blair Spittle, but it was actually a good goal, in fairness to the Joe Hart. Couldn't do much about it, but he was on hand to stop them in that second half of that save. But something that has been brought up in the chat, people are talking about Iwata when he played. I thought he had a decent game. He was playing well, but also when he get taken off, something interesting happened, Terry. There was some boos from the Celtic end. There was a lot of frustration going into this game about Iwata. Why is he not featuring more? We've seen early in the season when Iwata has been given very few chances, he's done all right. He's definitely not been the worst player on the park. Him playing is a benefit to Callum McGregor, who gets quite a lot of flack right now. He's seen as being one of our best players, the captain. He's expected to be dragging us out of the mire at times, and we feel like he's a bit handicapped when he's got to play really deep in the midfield. But when Iwata plays and McGregor can push forward a little bit, it seems to work for us. Funny enough, before the game, Brendan Rodgers said, in justifying his team selection, he said, it allows Cal to be a bit more dynamic today. Interesting choice of words there, Brendan. But yes, dynamic was the word he chose there. But yeah, Iwata coming off, he obviously there's a few boos from the crowd. I did see somebody said in the chat, though, he feels that Iwata was sacrificed because Brendan could sense that we were starting to pin Motherwell in at that point, because it was all one-way traffic. Other than the Lennon Miller header, Motherwell didn't really have a sniff in the second half. It was just we were pushed them in. So I guess it was maybe a case of he's more a defensive-minded midfielder. Let's get Bernardo on, who's a bit more box-to-box, because we're pushing them back here. Something like that, rather than Brendan didn't see a good first. Because I felt he played well. I imagine that Brendan probably felt the same, and it was a case of we're starting to, dominate the game here. We need to get more attack-minded players on, I would say.
Phil, I think you'll struggle to find any of Iwata's performances where he's done anything wrong, to be honest. He's always been neat and tidy. He's always he's one of those players that reads the game, makes the tackles, gets the ball, keeps it simple, gives it to somebody else who's got a bit more talent. But I think our whole season hinged on having to get another goal. So in terms of what the manager was going to do, he's not going to take O'Reilly off when you're trying to win a game. He's not going to take the captain off. The only real option was to take Iwata off. and bring on somebody who's got a bit more of a goal prowess. But I don't think that Iwata did anything wrong, and he's never done anything wrong in a Celtic shirt. And I think the supporters see that in the games that they've watched him play. You know, he's probably the one player that it's quite hard to try and work out why he hasn't had more game time, because even under Ange brought him in. He was the Japanese Player of the Year the previous year, and Ange didn't overly use him either. And it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see as we move into these last 10 or 11 games whether the manager decides to go with Iwata in the next game, the games after. Like I say, I at this point would probably sacrifice the wingers because there's none of them are delivering, and I would just overload the midfield with decent footballers. And Iwata to me looks like a decent footballer, as does Bernardo, O'Reilly, McGregor. I would just load the midfield with those guys and hope that you can get enough instead of trying to create chances from wide. Try to create chances by going through the middle, but also have Taylor and Ralston or Johnson providing all the width. And Johnson was quite wasteful today until he got the cross for Hoopy's second goal. And
yes,
he was wasteful. Johnson got himself in that same position maybe 2, 3, 4 times during the game. He was blazing it over the bar. He was blazing it out for a throw-in. And the cross for Hoopy's second goal was the only time that he got a decent cross into the box. And like we said earlier, that finish where your centre forward is just getting on the end of something and banging it into the net. That's that first time finish that we've talked about.
Finishes, yes.
Which Agamakis.
Yep. I noticed as well that Johnson discarded his mask at some point along the way. He was just like,
I think it was half time.
Just get rid of it. You're talking more about talking about sacrifice and change and stuff like that. I like to draw parallels to things that I've seen before that I can relate to in terms of Celtic history, and we're in a similar position here where we know what's left in the season. We've got to essentially win every game, basically. And you go back to Strachan's third season. Now, the start of that season, he signed Mo Donati and he signed Scott Brown, who were two big signings for the middle of the park. We ended that season with Hartley and Robson as the midfield pairing, and many, many fans to this day will say, well, that was one of the reasons why we essentially won. Like, they weren't the fashionable two to play, but you've got to do what you need to do, and I think that's what Brendan needs to do now. If it's a case of Iwata does need to play, if that is the secret weapon that we've been looking for all along, and it does involve maybe, I like your suggestion about the diamond in the midfield. I think that's great. Just pack the midfield. If that's what we've got to do, so be it, because the wingers are essentially empty jerseys at times. Yeah. So Brendan, I think, needs to just adapt that mentality of it's just win or bust now. It's none of this, we need to win with a certain style. We just need to make sure that we get it done and get over the line. And this could be a similar situation to, say, Strachan's first season, where he was in a position where he had to drop Brown, he had to drop Donati, and it was Hartley and Robson who just drove us to that title. So we could be in a similar situation. But a winger that you did mention that I think we need to talk about, Dyson Maeda forgot his shooting boots today, didn't he? He missed quite a few.
He did, wow. But I also think he was a wee bit more effectual on that left-hand side than he has been on the right. The only time I was happy with him on the right was whenever it meant Jota was on the left, because we were through that period where we were trying to play Jota on the right, and Jota wasn't just as good on that side. I thought Maeda, I don't know, he was in terms of an attacking threat, there was nothing. But do you really want to talk about your wingers in a defensive sense? That they give you something from a defensive side. I think he's better on the left than he is on the right, but he still wasn't creating anything at all. And when you had Kuhn on the other side doing absolutely nothing either, it's two players. You're playing two players down. Yang, there is something about Yang that I like. I like that. I like a winger who faces up to the fullback and goes at him. And I think that's probably his skill set, where he'll go at his man, and even when he's been playing and things haven't been going for him and he hasn't got by his man, every single time he gets it, he still stands up and goes as if he's going to attack the fullback. But it's just that end product. It's whether he can He can become better at crossing the ball in.
Yeah.
But going back to, I would ditch the wide men because I don't think we're getting enough from them. I don't know whether that's a three at the back with Nawrocki, Carter-Vickers, and Scales, with then Taylor on the left and either Ralston or Johnston on the right, and they're the guys that have to provide the width getting forward, or whether it's a four at the back and a five in midfield and a one up front. And I don't even know whether the one up front is now Kyogo or Idah. I don't think the two of them, unless the two of them are playing right up front together, I don't know if I want Kyogo getting in O'Reilly's way. I think when he's playing that sort of withdrawn role, he was picking up the pockets of space that I want O'Reilly to get into. And I would just completely overload it with those midfielders who are all pretty good football players, and just hope that between them all they can find a way to create the chances, and Johnson and Taylor bombing forward as much as they possibly can, because I think at the minute with the wide men that we've got, we're starting every game 2 players down.
Yeah, it's totally ineffective at times, and other than when Yang came on. But it also feels like every so often you get one that comes on. Yang seems to do this season, where he's had moments where he looks like this is it. He's arrived. Yeah. I remember he came on against St Mirren in a game.
He'll start next week, and he'll be hooked after 45, won't he?
Aye, because remember, I say he came on against St Mirren when Palma was absolutely rank. After Palma had a good run of games, it's like what we do with penalties, where a guy gets a turn for a wee while, then he misses, and another guy gets a turn. So it feels like the wingers are doing the same thing. Palma had a good run, fell at for him. Yang came on, played well for a few games. Then he had that horrible showing at McDermott Park where he got hooked at half-time. He didn't seem to know what the offside rule was that day. He was all over the shop. And then, today he's looked quite lively. So it'll probably be his turn to get a few games now. But it's just about maintaining that consistency now. We're now down to, 11 league games to go. So it's like, the sands of time are ticking away. So we need to, I know Chris Sutton said before the game that it feels like Brendan still doesn't know what his best team is, which is quite worrying given we're about to enter March. But it's now a case of 11 games to go. He has to find something that works, whether it's ugly or not, and he needs to obviously stick to it to get us over the line. And getting over the line today, Terry, it's quite amazing. Every game we've played in Motherwell this season, there has been late drama in every single one of them. Beat them at Fir Park at the start of the season, 2 goals in stoppage time. They equalised in stoppage time at Celtic Park. And then today, and as you said earlier on, I think you're right, I felt it as well watching it. You did feel that it was coming. There was a similar... with Ange last season, there was a lot of times where you felt that. I remember a game up at Pittodrie when Callum McGregor scored quite a late one where it was 0-0 for ages, and then you just felt like it was going to come. There was a game against Dundee United, I remember they equalised really late on, and we still went up the park and scored 2 in the last 3 or 4 minutes. But today was one of those ones where I was like, this is coming here, this is. But mad scenes when Idah gets on the end of that, and again, that's just where you want your forwards to be in those positions, because there's been too many times this season where, again, the ball has been zipped across the box and been put in a nice position, and the strikers have maybe dropped too deep, because, again, I don't want to blame Kyogo or anything. I say Brendan's obviously wanting them to play a certain way, and he benefits more from just being a reactive striker on the shoulder of defenders, just being in the right place. Sometimes he misses them. He does miss them from time to time, but he never ever hides. Today, Idah was the guy that was in the right place at the right time to put it away. And then just for good measure as well, we stuck another one away just to put a cherry on top of it. But it's quite freaky how that's 3 games this season with Motherwell, and we've ended up with all these late goals. So hopefully
here's the thing. See when the Palma goal was getting checked for VAR, you're actually still on a knife edge, because there's probably another 60 seconds, and you don't trust this team. You don't trust this team to get it over the line. And I was just thinking, please just give this, so that in case something goes wrong, we'll still get there. I'm just delighted that we're sitting here and we're talking about a positive result, because if we hadn't got those 3 points, I don't know about you, but I think that was it done. I really do.
I think so. I think the momentum, because at that point, if it was if we'd only drawn the day, we would have been 4 behind. So it's then a case of, even if we want to beat them in the next game at Ibrox when we play them, we still wouldn't go ahead of them. We need to still be, when we play them at Ibrox, we need to be at a point where we can either go ahead of them with a win, or if fate would go our way and they drop a few points in other games, maybe we're ahead of them at that point. But if we were at a point where...
I don't see it, Phil. I don't know about you. I don't see it. Everything in terms of Rangers, our games are stressful. Any positive results we're getting are still stressful. They're getting the job done. There's yesterday, you're looking at a potential banana skin against an informed Hearts team, and they're scoring within the first 2 minutes. Everything's going their way. Everything is joined up at that club, from the boardroom to the manager to the players on the pitch to the supporters. They're all pulling in the same direction. Everyone's geared towards trying to win this league title.
Yep.
Compare that to Celtic, where you've got a manager saying he's telling the team to play one way. You've got a set of players who are clearly not following that instruction. Mm-hmm. You've got a board who aren't backing a manager that they didn't want. You've got a support that's torn, with a section of that support having been missing for part of the season and at loggerheads with the board. Everything on our side is completely disjointed and disconnected. Everything on their side is connected, and they're all pulling in the same direction. Look at the January transfer window. Mm-hmm. They've gone and brought in 3 players who are making a positive contribution towards their title charge. We've kind of scraped together 2 players who are not, despite Idah making the difference today, they're not the players that this manager wanted us to bring in. They're not the quality that he was talking about before we went into the January window. Rangers have brought in players that are making a difference. They're game changers, and they're getting the job done for them. Now, I just done it for us today, and I really hope and pray that this guy's good enough to get us. If Kyogo's not on form and he's not getting the goals, then I hope Idah's the man that gets it done. But Rangers went into the January window looking for signings that were going to help them get over the lines. I honestly think the Celtic board felt after we won that game in December, I think they've just assumed we're going to win this title. We don't have to have a good window. We've now beaten them twice. We don't have to do anything here. Whereas they've gone all out, and they probably don't even have the money to pay for the players that they've brought in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they've gone all out, and we talk about being a big club, but we don't behave like a big club.
Yeah.
Big clubs, and look across the world till you see Barcelona, Real Madrid, they're constantly teetering on the brink of bankruptcy and stuff, because they push every single amount of coin that they have into improving the team. And you have to hand it to Rangers. They behave like a big club, even though their bank balance may not say that they are. They go all out. They put money into the team that they don't even have. And they had a great January without me even knowing anything about those players. But you can see they've come in, they're first team players. They're making a telling contribution. And look at what they do in Europe. They find a way to get the job done in Europe. Yeah. And something we've completely struggled with over the last 20 years since Seville. We haven't had anything like a proper European run. And all the momentum is with them. Yeah. But for that goal today, I was ready to concede the whole thing. I didn't see any way back. If we fell 4 behind, even though we've 2 games still to come against them, I don't see them dropping points against anybody else. I really don't. I think we have to match them against the other teams, and we've got to win at least one of those games and not lose the other one.
Yeah, that's it. We could draw at Ibrox and beat them at Celtic Park, and that would do it.
But the goal difference is now going against us as well, and I really don't see us recovering that, to be honest, because we look like conceding all the time, and we haven't been great at scoring. But we're sitting here, and we're still in this. Whereas with 3 minutes to go, that didn't look as if it was going to be the case. So let's take it into another week. Let's take it week by week. Yep. The one thing I would say is everything's going for Rangers at the minute. If something goes against them and things change a little bit, they've got to find a different skill set that they haven't been asked for. Then let's see what happens then. If they get a bad result, if they stumble, if a team scores against them in the last minute and they lose points, let's see how they react to that.
No, definitely we'll see how when the shoe's on the other foot. Because for us, this is unfamiliar territory for a lot of our players. We've been so dominant for so long. now that we fell behind, let's see what we do. But it's in our hands still. You're right, if we drop points today, it's then definitely out of our hands. We're still in a position where we can pounce essentially and get ahead of them. But it's going to come down to the 2 games against them. But say we could draw at Ibrox and beat them at Celtic Park. As long as we win the other games, then that would obviously win us the title. But my God, I don't think I could handle it going down to the wire like that. We really do need another team or two to try and take something off them. But you are right in what you're saying, and I try and adapt that mentality. My dad's very good at the whole, they might drop points today, that's a very tricky one for them. And I'm like, always have it in your head that they're going to win. Because just have it in your head, because see when they do get the points, you'll also be angry about it. So you're better to just have no expectation.
To be fair, that their board made a call as soon as it became really blatantly obvious that Mickey Beale wasn't going to lay a glove on Celtic. They made a change, and they've brought in what seems to be a manager who can get the job done. And the consistency that they've had, other than the game against us, and they dropped points at Pittodrie, they've had excellent consistency, and they haven't really had too many scary moments. You're just hoping that at some point in the next 10 or 11 games that they have adversity to deal with, and then the question becomes, all right, you're really good at seeing games out whenever everything goes your way. Something happens in a game that doesn't go your way, you maybe have a man sent off early, or you go behind. How do they react then? And I still think we're second favourites at this point. I think we're definitely second favourites, and I don't like saying that, but at least we're still breathing. Whereas 93 minutes in today, we were gone, but we've got it done somehow or other.
Yeah, definitely, and that's all. I just need to hang in there for the time being. So we move on now to Wednesday night. We've got a midweek game. We're playing Dundee at Celtic Park. So, but yeah, Rangers are down at Rugby Park. Well, they have lost already this season, but it was the car salesman that was in charge at that point. So, taking that what you will, but who knows? Maybe Kilmarnock will surprise them again.
Probably your best chance. It's probably your best chance of getting something out of them. To be honest, away to Kilmarnock.
Yeah, they've shown this season, well, especially against us, Kilmarnock, that they're up for it, and they did beat Rangers on the first day of the season. So yeah, we need to just see what happens there. But if not, as long as we go and beat Dundee, we're still doing our part anyway, and that's all we really can do at this point. And yeah, so fingers crossed, a nice resounding victory. We're hoping for it. I would be surprised if it's more of the same, where there's a lot of sideways passing, but again, at that stage, if we've got to win ugly, we just need to do it. And
I think we need to hope Carter Vickers stays in the team.
It's crucial.
Honestly, he's so crucial, and I don't know where Hatate's at. It probably feels like he's another 3 weeks away. I think we really need him, and we've not had him at any stage. Even the games where he did come in, he was still building his way up, and even if he comes back in 3 weeks, it might take him another 3 weeks to get up to speed. And I don't know if we'll actually get to see the proper Rio Hatate this season, but I just think if we could get him back and get back to somewhere close to his best, that additional energy that he gives you, and again, overload the midfield. Imagine you had a midfield perhaps with Iwata, McGregor, O'Reilly, Bernardo, and Hatate all on there at the same time. There's enough good footballers in there. Sacrifice the wingers who aren't making any contribution. Get all of those guys on the pitch. Get O'Reilly up as close to the centre forward as you possibly can, and maybe that will get the job done for us.
Yeah, definitely. It's Hatate plays those risky forward balls that most of the midfield don't seem willing to do or are being told not to do. Hatate's quite willing to take those chances. Yes, sometimes we have been caught out, especially in Europe, but hey, we don't need to worry about that right now because no European football. But yeah, I think we can get away with it if Hatate comes back in. But yeah, he's got to hit the ground running, and sadly, there's a running theme here with him and Carter Vickers. Whenever they do come back from injury, there's usually another injury just around the corner. So hopefully, when he does get back in the team, we can just have him right through to the end of the season, and he can be maybe one of the key assets to get us over that line in first place. But Say we go now to Wednesday night against Dundee, and yeah, that's what's coming to 45 minutes. Say we're going to do about half an hour to 45 minutes anyway, so we're just coming up to the 45, so we'll wrap it up there. Yeah, obviously, in case you've only just tuned in and wondering where Russell is, he's not available today, so I've had to come in and sort of late on to do the show, but I believe he'll be on tomorrow, him and Jono, all the usual Monday club fun and frolics. I think there might even be a wee round of sudden death we can get in there as well, pick that up again. And yeah, so if you're new to the channel, if you've only just discovered this as well, keep us in your life a little bit longer. Hit the subscribe button on the way out, hit the bell notification to be reminded when the bus is on the road. Also hit that like button as well, helps us out massively. And yeah, we enjoy the rest of your Sunday, folks. I'm sure we certainly will anyway. A victory to celebrate. And yeah, onwards to Wednesday now. Only wins will do, Celtic. Thanks, Terry, for joining me.
Yes.
In fact, in fairness, I'm joining you because this is your show, mate. I'm the one who's joining you, so it's been a pleasure to be on with you, my man.
Thank you for making it happen.
Yeah.
See you later, everyone.
Right, catch you later, guys.
Goodbye.
Cheers.